When the greatest violinist who ever lived finally died, the most powerful church in the land would not let him be buried. His body was embalmed, sealed, and then refused a grave, not for years, but for more than half a century. It was hidden in the cellar of a leprosy hospital. It was stored in a vat at an oil factory. It was moved, exhumed, examined, and moved again, while the world argued over a single question. Was this man simply a genius, or had he made a bargain with the devil himself? The legend said his gift was supernatural. Forensic evidence says otherwise. This is the story of a performer so impossibly skilled that an entire continent believed no human could play that way without dark help, of the strange body that produced those impossible sounds, and of the medical truth hiding behind 2 centuries of myth. Because when modern doctors finally looked closely at what was known of this man, at his hands, his illnesses, and the bizarre fate of his corpse, they found no demon at all. They found something written into his very flesh from birth, and a death that the medicine of his age may have caused. To understand the legend, you first have to hear what audiences saw. Picture a dim concert hall lit only by flickering candles. Onto the stage walks a tall, gaunt figure, pale as wax, dressed in black, with long dark hair and a face that seemed all bone and shadow. He lifts a violin, and then he does things with it that no one in the audience has ever heard a human being do. He plays passages so fast the notes blur into a single shimmering line. He plays melodies on a single string while plucking others with his fingers. He bends the instrument to effects that sound like a human voice, like laughter, like weeping. People in the hall are not merely impressed. Some are frightened. His reach was inhuman. His fingers seemed too long, bending backward at impossible angles, stretching across the strings in ways that should have been physically impossible. He could span distances on the instrument that left other violinists shaking their heads in disbelief. Watching those long, pale fingers crawl and leap across the strings in the candlelight, audiences began to whisper that something was deeply wrong. No ordinary man, they said, could move like that. The hands themselves looked like proof of something unnatural, and the man did nothing to stop the rumors. He dressed the part, played up the mystery, arrived in black carriages, kept strange hours. By the height of his fame, a story had taken hold across the continent, repeated in drawing rooms and newspapers alike. This man, people said, had sold his soul. The price of his impossible gift was his immortal spirit, signed away to a dark power in exchange for the greatest talent the world had ever seen. Now, before we go further, stop for a moment, because here is where you get to take a side. The people of his own time were genuinely split, and we want to know which camp you join. One camp, large and fearful, looked at the impossible hands and the unearthly music and concluded that no natural explanation was enough, that something beyond the ordinary had to be at work in this man. The other camp, smaller and more skeptical, insisted there had to be a rational cause, that even the most dazzling talent is still the product of a human body, however unusual. A supernatural gift, or a natural one, we did not yet understand. Before you hear what the evidence reveals, tell us in the comments which side you are on. A pact with darkness. Secret in the body. Pick a side. Because for a long time, even reasonable people could not explain him. This brings us to the heart of the old story, and to why the supernatural version was so hard to dismiss. The truth is that no one in that era could account for what this man did. His abilities were not just better than other players, they were different in kind, as if he were operating under rules the rest of humanity did not have access to. He could play faster, reach farther, and produce sounds that trained musicians swore were impossible on the instrument. When the finest experts of the day could offer no explanation,
The supernatural one rushed in to fill the silence. A gift with no visible cause feels like magic, and magic in that age meant the devil. And the myth fed on more than his playing. His appearance unsettled people. The gaunt frame, the pale skin, the long, crooked posture, the way he seemed to fold and twist on stage. His private life was a scandal of gambling and affairs and rumoured cruelty. He looked like a man with something to hide, and he behaved like one too. Every part of him seemed to confirm the story. By the time he died, the legend was so powerful that it followed him past the grave and shaped what happened to his body for the next 50 years. But there was a quieter truth underneath all of it, and it had been written into him before he ever touched a violin. The clue was in those impossible hands. The very feature that convinced people he was supernatural, the absurd length and flexibility of his fingers, the way his joints bent past any normal limit, was not a gift from the dark. It was a sign that modern doctors would eventually recognize as the fingerprint of a real and well-documented medical condition. The thing audiences feared as proof of a pact was, in truth, proof of something far more human, a body built differently from birth. But no one in his lifetime had the medical knowledge to see it, and so the mystery hardened, waiting nearly 2 centuries for science to catch up. Now the investigation begins.
In the modern era, doctors and medical historians went back to everything that was recorded about this man, his physical description, his lifelong illnesses, the casts and accounts of his remarkable hands, and they read it all through the lens of modern medicine. They were not asking whether he was magical. They were asking a sharper question. What single underlying condition could explain a body that strange, hands that flexible, and a life so plagued by sickness? For 2 centuries, the legend said his gift came from beyond the natural world. Forensic evidence says otherwise. What the evidence revealed came in 3 parts, and each one pulled the devil further out of the story. Here is the first revelation. The impossible hands had a natural cause. The leading modern explanation is that this man carried a connective tissue disorder, a heritable condition that produces exactly the traits that astonished his audiences: unusually long limbs and fingers, and joints that flex far beyond the normal range. Doctors today can look at the surviving descriptions of his hands, the casts taken of them, the accounts of how he stretched across the strings, and recognize a pattern they see in living patients. The very thing that looked supernatural, the spidery fingers bending backward across the strings, is a recognized hallmark of this kind of disorder. His gift was not signed in dark ink. It was written in his connective tissue, present from the day he was born. If you guessed the answer was hidden in the body, the evidence took your side. But the second revelation turns the gift into a curse. That same condition does not only stretch the fingers, it can quietly damage the body from the inside. Conditions of this kind are associated with a long list of troubles: joint pain, vision problems, breathing difficulty, fatigue, and weakness of vital internal structures. And this man was sick for most of his life, plagued by ailments that forced him to cancel performances and eventually drove him from the stage altogether. The very disorder that may have given him his reach may also have been slowly breaking him down. The gift and the affliction were the same thing, wearing 2 faces. And that leads to the third revelation, the one that answers the question we asked you earlier and darkens it. The thing that finally killed him may not have been the disorder at all, but the medicine meant to treat his other diseases. For years he was dosed with the standard remedies of his time for the illnesses he had picked up. Treatments built around toxic substances, including heavy metals that we now know to be poisonous. Taken over years, these so-called cures can produce their own slow, grinding harm. The greatest violinist in history may have been worn down not only by a disease he was born with, but by the very treatments his doctors believed were saving him. There was no devil collecting a debt. There was a sick man and the crude medicine of his age. If minutes ago you said the answer lay in the body and not the beyond, the evidence is on your side. A word of honesty, because this story demands it. We cannot perform a clean autopsy across 2 centuries. His body was embalmed but never properly examined when it might have answered everything, and the exact cause of his final decline is still debated by serious scholars, with candidates ranging from the inherited disorder to the diseases he caught to the toxic treatments he took. What stands on firm ground is the bigger truth. There is no credible case for anything supernatural. The features that terrified his audiences are explained by recognized medicine, and his suffering and death fit a human pattern of illness and harmful treatment. The fine print is debated, the headline is settled, the devil was never in it. So what does all of this change? It changes how we read the things we cannot immediately explain. Faced with a talent so far beyond the ordinary that no one could account for it, an entire civilization reached for the supernatural and then punished the man for it, denying his body rest for more than half a century because of a story they had invented about him. The real explanation was stranger and sadder than the myth. A man born with a body that bent the rules, who turned his difference into the greatest artistry the world had seen, and who paid for it in lifelong pain and an early death. The legend wanted a demon. The evidence offers a human being, gifted and afflicted by the very same flesh. Earlier we asked which side you were on, a pact with darkness, or a secret in the body. Now you have heard what the evidence reveals. Were you right? And here is the deeper question we would love to hear you argue in the comments. If the very thing that made this man a genius was also the thing that destroyed his health, then was his impossible gift a blessing at all, or simply a beautiful disease? Tell us what you think. And it returns us, in the end, to that embalmed body, refused a grave for 50 years, hidden in cellars and factories while the world clung to its legend. Think of the strange journey that corpse actually took. Turned away from consecrated ground, it was first kept in the cellar of an abandoned leprosy hospital. Later it was moved to a vat at an oil works. It spent 4 years buried in a private garden, was finally given a cemetery only decades after death, then dug up again by his own son, examined and moved once more, not laid to rest for good until more than half a century had passed. A body treated like cursed cargo, all because of a story. We can finally say what that wandering corpse really was. Not the vessel of a man who bargained with darkness, but the remains of someone shaped, gifted, and slowly killed by his own extraordinary flesh. For 2 centuries, the world believed his gift came from somewhere beyond the natural. Forensic evidence says otherwise. A man can be so far ahead of what his age can explain that they call him a devil and refuse his bones a resting place. But the truth was always inside him, in the long bending fingers and the fragile body, waiting for a science that could finally tell the difference between a miracle and a man. Discovery continues. Thanks for watching. If this story stayed with you, subscribe and turn on notifications. We cover forensic mysteries, hidden history, and the cases the legend tried to bury.